a little bit about me. I am an author. I recently wrote a book on self-awareness. I've been working as a transformational artist and creative director for over 15 years now, working with some of the biggest name in personal growth industry. And I've been also creative director for Mind Valley, so one of the biggest digital publishing houses in personal growth. In terms of art, I've been creating transformational experiences that combine technology, art, and personal growth to shift people's perception of themselves. So this is quite different approach to creativity that I'm going to introduce you today, because we are going to talk about how to recreate yourself, actually, rather than creating something external. And I think this is the most beautiful process, because it really involves meeting yourself again and receiving yourself, probably in the ways that you haven't yet received yourself, perhaps. So first, I would like you to just reflect a couple of minutes on how would you actually describe yourself to someone in 3 words. What would you say to people? Not what you do for a job, but how you actually think about yourself when you introduce yourself to people. And so now just think about those questions. What would you say about yourself to yourself and to others? What would you think others think of you? What opinions do you have about yourself? Are those beliefs genuinely yours, or have people told them to you? Or have you created them for yourself? What experiences have created those beliefs? Are your beliefs empowering or rather limiting? Do they move you at the deep level, or are they holding you back? Are these beliefs the ones you would like to keep? Very often we actually introduce ourselves by something we want people to believe about ourselves, but not exactly what we truly believe about ourselves. And whatever that definition actually is, in any way, it's actually a limitation we are putting on ourselves. Because the moment we define ourselves by something we are, we at the same time define ourselves by something we are not. And in order to really start recreating ourselves, we need to accept that we might actually not know truly who we are and what we are capable of. So there comes a time when you must unbecome everything you are in order to be. You must undress, unlearn, unravel, and unframe the ideas, thoughts, forms, and beliefs you have accepted about who you are or about who you are not, in order to create yourself anew. And I really love this part, because it invites you to sort of really unframe everything you perceived about yourself, and just it invites this perception, this new awareness, where you can, rather than trying and build that image around yourself that you hold on to, it invites you to truly re-experience yourself in every single moment without any assumption or judgment about who you are or who you are not. It allows you to be surprised by who you might become and who you might be in every single moment. And that's the beginning of a beautiful transformation. So transformation can't happen without acceptance. And in here, it's really important to understand the meaning of self-love and self-acceptance. It's really going this path of perceiving ourselves without any judgment, without trying to identify something as good or better or worst. It really invites you to sort of perceive yourself in that open way where everything is possible, where you invite and accept yourself being wrong, when you accept yourself being imperfect, when you accept yourself making mistakes. And this is very powerful place, because many leaders, when you look up to people who are really became a true enlightened leaders, are those people who are capable of admitting they're wrong, who are capable of admitting they don't know something, who are capable of admitting that they made a mistake, and freely communicate about that. And there is something liberating in that. There is something we look up to, because there is a certain strength and confidence that comes from actually accepting the imperfection that we might have, or those parts we perceived simply as being imperfect. So this is one of my absolutely beloved quotes by a little girl who is 6 years old, who said, "Love is when you are missing some of your teeth, but you are not afraid to smile." And this is so beautiful as an analogy, because it really is how we are. You know, you never arrive to the point or in your life when you can say, "I'm done. I'm perfect right now. I arrived to a place where this is everything I wanted to believe about myself. This is everything I wanted to accomplish." Such a place doesn't exist. And this life here is about really creating yourself anew every single moment, momentarily, by becoming, transforming, evolving. And it's really important that through that path of evolution, of self-evolution, we really learn a compassion that we can adapt towards ourselves. So self-confidence doesn't come from gaining more knowledge, more wealth, or more personality, but from giving up the fear of not knowing, not having, or not being perfect. And you know, I think this really describes and this beautiful philosophy that I have about life and I have about happiness and joy. It really is, you know, the possibility for ourselves to create a space for making mistakes, to create a space for not knowing, and to create a space for discovering ourselves every single day and every single moment. And when we realize how much we have accumulated about who we think we are, it actually is a long process of unbecoming and stripping those beliefs that we have basically accumulated about ourselves. And sometimes it's a it can be very painful process, because we are so addicted of this image we try to create around about ourselves, that image that protects us from rejection, that protects us from being judged or simply being abandoned. And we, in fact, we create a little prison around ourselves, and we don't walk this path free, and we don't walk this path in our truest power, because every single time we frame ourselves, we have to carry those beliefs, and we have to constantly prove ourselves that those beliefs are real, that whatever we have accepted about ourselves is real. And it takes much more energy to constantly try to prove to ourselves what is actually real and what is not. And when you think about that, since very young age, we are asked about our parents and our colleagues, who would you like to be when you grow up, right? So we are taught and programmed to project ourselves in the future, to know who we would like to become in 20 years. I mean, how is that even possible to know that, right? So our only goal in this life is to know how to be in every single moment. It's not about trying to figure out and think about who we are. It's about feeling who we are. Because in fact, we don't have to have any idea of who we are. Our brain doesn't have to have an image of a description and definition of our persona. We simply have to let go of that mind, that thinking, and reconnect with our body, reconnect with our feeling, our being, and be guided by our intuition in every moment, where to be and where to go. And when we realign to that place, we will be always guided to exactly right people, to the exactly right places. So it's really allowing yourself to no longer think about who you are, but simply feel who you are. And again, sometimes accepting that you are not good enough is a bigger step towards self-love than trying to constantly prove yourself otherwise. And I think there is this huge movement of saying, I'm good enough, I'm good enough, I'm good enough. But actually, maybe you are not good enough at some things, and that's perfectly okay, right? So it's about being and not being. It's about being great at some things and not being great in others, because you can't simply be good at everything, right? Your heart will always guide you towards the things that are right for you, and those things that are not perhaps right for you, you won't find the productivity and creativity in order to make them great. You will be able only to succeed in things that you truly love. And in order to find the things you truly love, you need to be guided by your heart and not your mind. So again, coming back to the body and coming back to our heart. And then let's dive a little bit more deeper into psychology of all of that. So Charles Horton Cooley actually said, I'm not who you think I am. I'm not who I think I am. I am who I think you think I am. So this philosophical concept is saying basically that you don't think about yourself whatever you think about yourself. You think about yourself whatever you think other thinks of you. And just take that in. Think about your friends, maybe two closest friends, and just ask yourself a question: what do I think they think of me? Right? And how does it make me actually feel? And you will discover that actually those people who we are the closest with, we truly believe that they think great things of us. And we feel so comfortable and nice in this definition that we believe they have of us, this perception we believe they have of us. But actually, we only feel comfortable in that definition because we don't truly believe this about ourselves. And that's where simply how we also gather people and select people who are in our surrounding, is created. It's influenced by whatever judgment we make about how this person is perceiving us. So every time we don't behave as if nobody was watching or listening, we change who we are. Instead of being faithful to ourselves, we manipulate our behaviors, actions, and words to try to get the reaction we want from others. So we've learned perfectly to put all of those masks and all of those definitions that we've created since a very early age. And we became so convinced that this is how we want to be perceived that we will adapt our behaviors, our words, and our action in order to get people to believe what we want them to believe about us. Being actually afraid to let them choose whatever they would like to believe. We became addicted to that control of our perception and how we are perceived by others. But again, it limits hugely not only our freedom, it limits hugely our joy and our self-expression. So we can be creative and we can truly express our talents, gifts, and abilities if we are constantly framing ourselves by what we are not. And even if partially what we believe in about ourselves is true, it's still a frame, because it doesn't mean we can be better and bigger and bolder. And every one of us has this sense that we can be better, we can be more bolder, we can be more expanded version of who we are. And why? Because it's true. Because instead of expanding who we are, we've learned to shrink who we are. We've learned to frame who we are, and we've learned to imprison who we are. And that's in that way that is going to never liberate us and our true expression. So everything we deny, judge, reject, or perceive as unacceptable or wrong in ourselves, we disidentify with. Becomes part of the shadow. In order to protect our self-image from anything unflattering or unfamiliar, we do many different things and go a great lengths. we divorce ourselves from anything that doesn't get acceptance or approval from our environment, including our parents, teachers, family, friends, and mostly ourselves. So this is, as you can see, what happens when we create this association, when we create this problem of not accepting everything about ourselves. It gets pushed to the shadow, to the unconscious, and we disidentify and we divorce those parts. And what happens then on psychological level is that mind has three most beloved techniques for repressing those parts, for repressing ourselves. And these are mask, rationalization, and projection. So repression creates what is called cognitive dissonance. In the field of psychology, it's mental discomfort or psychological stress experienced by a person who simultaneously holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values. So in other words, it's a disconnect between who we think we are and who we actually are. So we create so many social masks, which we wear on a daily basis to fit in, that after a while, we don't know anymore who we truly are. And so, it's very often you can basically see and experience that when you are triggered by something, when you have those emotions, when someone tells you something about yourself or give you a feedback, and you refuse to see that, you refuse to accept that. So every time we, for example, have done something as children or adults that has been criticized or judged by others, we identify that part of ourselves as bad, as wrong, as worse. And so we disassociated with this part, put a mask on, or that we learn to basically completely integrate and think that this is who we are, not accepting that somewhere in our shadow there is actually completely different belief system that is not only experience in cognitive dissonance, in this basic disconnect of personality, but it's experienced by us attracting things we don't want in our life. So our subconscious beliefs and whatever we believe ourselves on subconscious level attracts reality in people that will reflect to us where we are at. And so if you consciously believe that you are confident and lovable, but subconsciously you believe you actually don't believe that, and you have a belief that you are not lovable, you will keep attracting people who will show to you how unlovable you are, because people will always treat you accordingly to how you treat yourself, accordingly to what you truly believe about yourself, right? So we can't witness how much we've evolved.
Sorry to interrupt, Dorota, but this is just, you've got about 5 minutes, so just to let you know. Thank you.
Yeah, I will go very quickly. So we can't witness how much we evolve without seeing our reflection in another person who is our mirror. And basically, when you notice, the only part of our body that we can't see, it's our face, right? And the only place we can see our face, it's a mirror. And so in life, that mirror for us, it's another person, it's someone else who reflects to us where we are at. And so the easiest way to actually discover cognitive dissonance and discover subconscious beliefs that are contradictory is to watch what triggers you in other people. So we won't do it right now, but just list that as an exercise that you can do later. List 3 errors that you frequently observe in others, right? And that might be, I'm triggered because this person is not generous enough, for example, right? And then ask yourself, how those characteristics are relevant to you? Am I not generous enough with others? Am I not generous with myself? Because it will always reflect, if it's a trigger, it will always reflect the truth about you. If people tell you things that are not truth, you won't mind. You won't feel anything. You will feel a sense of peace. If there is a seed of truth in whatever they say, then it's perfect, because it's a great opportunity to see your blind spot, to see when you might not actually see something about yourself that is true. So it's an excellent exercise. But you can discover not only your subconscious limiting beliefs, you can also discover your qualities and your gifts and your attributes. And in a similar way, when you list 3 qualities, I think you admire in other people, and ask yourself the same question of how this actually, what it has to do with me, you will discover that those characteristics are hidden gifts and abilities that hasn't been yet expressed, that you hold within yourself. And this is Jung theory. Jung theory calls this golden shadows. Golden shadows are repressed parts of ourselves, our gifts and abilities that we disconnected with. And so to wrap it up, there is nothing in this world, external or internal, that doesn't come from you, and you should never reject something that is yours. So this world at any time represents where you are at, and basically what you believe about life and what you believe about yourself. And it's a beautiful constant feedback. And if you only open to seeing yourself fully with all of the parts and accept and embrace the parts, you become free to fully recreate yourself and you. And so, just as a reminder, self-rejection doesn't come from us actually being afraid by other rejecting us, but us putting and judging ourselves and being afraid that other people might judge those same things about ourselves. So if we don't judge ourselves, we will never be afraid of rejection. So if your greatest desire is to be seen for who you are, it means that you are hiding yourself. If you are hiding yourself, it means you are rejecting parts of yourself you don't want to reveal. You create social masks so you will not be rejected by others for the very same reasons for which you have rejected yourself. Those things you are the most ashamed about. If you wear a mask, you are never being rejected for who you are, but for who you are not. And to wrap it up, real transformation is giving up one form before you can take on another. It is our willingness to be nothing for a while. So I invite you all to be nothing, to become nothing, and to basically unbecome everything you think about yourself in order to really choose how would you like to be, and most importantly, in order to feel yourself in every single moment. So this is my book. You can follow me as well. And I really invite you, if you want to dive deeper in those topics. The book is a coaching book that has over 30 different exercises that you can really use in order to completely transform your self-perception and really embrace a greater self-love. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, it's now.
Yeah, if you've got any questions, pop them in the chat.
I can't see the chat, I think.
There is none at the moment.
Yep.
Nobody's got any questions? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, we'll... Oh, here we go. What do you see is the most difficult thing to change?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I think the most difficult patterns, because it's easy actually to see the truth, but it's much harder to change habits. And habits takes time. And even if you're ready to see the whole truth about yourself, you will still find yourself being triggered. You will still find yourself sometimes repeating the same mistakes. You will still find yourself, reacting in the similar way. And it takes time to to react differently over and over and over again for the pattern to change. But it takes, once you start to practice that, it will become shorter and shorter. The trigger will be shorter and shorter. So now, for example, if I'm triggered by someone, it will maybe last an hour maximum. So it doesn't go for days, it doesn't go for weeks. And you're able to just see yourself and accept and just let go. And then even if you react, in the old way, you will catch yourself doing that. Sometimes it will take a few hours. Oh gosh, I did that again. But then it will become momentarily. You will catch yourself doing that. And it's a beautiful process, really. And when you realize there is no place where you arrive, when you stop, you will just fall in love with the process. Any other question?
A follow-up to that one. A lot of people saying thank you. And a follow-up to that question was, so identifying triggers is the first step? Question mark.
The trigger, for me, it's a gift, because it's a possibility to basically bring subconscious to conscious. So triggers are never about the present moment. They're always about the past. Because imagine if I erase your memory completely, you would never be triggered. If you had someone screaming at you, you wouldn't know what that means. So you might be curious why this person is screaming, but you wouldn't define it as wrong or bad, or however you define it. So triggers comes from the past. It comes from a memory, from an event that was hurtful, that you associate basically with an emotion and then a certain reaction. So if you are triggered, it means that something from the past wasn't fully resolved, and that's why you are reacting with a trigger to a current situation. So actually, every time I'm triggered, I'm like, thank you, because that means I can see something about myself that I'm not seeing. And I go, you actually have a very specific exercise in my book that you can do whenever you are triggered, a very simple path to go back to that event from the past and completely resolve the trigger. So you won't be triggered anymore by the same situation. So it completely cancels, it changes the memory of the event. And in that way, free you from judging the situation in the same way and activating the same emotion.